So this whole episode is annoying to me because we're speaking in vaguely spiritual terms. But what good is that to me if I'm just throwing out these generalizations with no purpose, point, or meaning to it? You know, and that's why I think Megan is so shallow, because she wants to tap into this great river of strength, which is true spirituality, but she's too much of a coward to do it with any meaning. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We're going to be doing Meghan Markle's show with Love Meghan. We're on episode 5. We're going to finish the series this week. This episode was particularly annoying to me because Meghan's having on Jay Shetty and his wife Roddy. And Jay has a podcast. It's pretty well known. He focuses a lot on, he talks to like celebrities and well-known people, but their focus is like how to be present and self-love and joy and meaningfulness and mindfulness and all these, things. So Meghan, wanting to take a leaf out of his book, wants her episode with him to be equally centering. And she wants this episode to get you thinking about all the craftsmanship behind things and to really like make you grateful and conscious and aware and present and loving, because you're so grateful for all of the little tiny things that had to go behind, say, you sitting down to enjoy a piece of bread, right? So that's her main objective. Spoiler alert, she fails. But, I just feel like Meghan is always trying to make this show more than it is, which is a bunch of grown-ups playing in the kitchen or playing crafts. Like, it's a very shallow show. And it's a show that actually could have involved a lot of interesting conversations along the way, but it's too late to try that now. Also, she doesn't have the skill set to do it. So it feels kind of embarrassing because she's with somebody who has made his career off of that. And I don't really enjoy Jay Shetty's podcast, mostly because I feel like it's trying so hard to always give you this deep emotional message. But there are a lot of people who like his show and find it uplifting. And so he's already got the corner on the market there. Meghan can't come in and try to take a little Jay shine, but she's trying. So, a different person, I would think, would have generously allowed him to come in and do his thing on her set. Like if she had framed it in the sense that we believed he was coming in to do what he does on his podcast, except on her show, and she was going to kind of abdicate the main role and let Jay run the show, that would have been one thing. But it just more feels like she's trying to take his cloak and wear it herself, and it doesn't fit her. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Let's get into it. The opening scene is her in Ojai. She's at an olive grove. And she's talking to the two guys who run the place. And she's brought a little friend. Who might that be? Jamie Carlima. And I was really excited because I thought Jamie was going to be there for the rest of the show. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be juicy. But unfortunately, she was just there for like 5 seconds. But she gave us many moments, even though she was only on screen for like a top of 5 minutes. They're standing there in the olive grove talking, and the two people that they're talking to, just lovely people, and they're talking about the process and everything. And then Jamie Kern-Lima is standing over there with an olive being like, what if I just squeezed it? What would happen? And of course it's going to squirt olive oil all over you. And so they have a big laugh about that. Whoa! And then after they have a laugh about, we're just splattered with olive oil around here. We're just covered in olive oil, but our hands are really soft. Ha ha ha, what a knee slapper. One of the guys has this little cat that comes along, and they're like, oh, who's this? And the guy's like, oh, that's my dog cat. Jamie Kern-Lima, once again, she doesn't know what it is. She's still playing with her olive. What's a dog cat? A dog cat? And the guy's like, well, she goes everywhere with me. She rides in the truck with me. She goes to work with me. She's my dog cat, All right. Well, they go into the processing plant where they can see how the olive oil is made. And Jamie Kern-Lima says, wow, wow, wow. Just like she did in that interview with Meghan. And I thought that interview with Meghan might have just been Jamie not sure what to do or say. But I think this is just her personality. I think that really was Jamie Kern-Lima we saw. I think it really was. So that was kind of scary. Anyway, unfortunately, Jamie wasn't there for the long haul, but I have a feeling she'll come back later. I actually haven't looked to see who the rest of the guests are, but I feel like I saw in the promo that there was more with Jamie Kern-Lima another time, so we can only hope, because Jamie is quite the character. I mean, she's just really easy to be amused by. All right, well, we got to get on back to the grind here. We got to get back to the show, right? We can't just stand in an Olive Grove all day squeezing juice all over ourselves. Megan gets back to her rented house and she's preparing for her guest. As I said earlier, it's Jay Shetty and his wife, Roddy. And she says that she's going to fix them a beverage, but they don't drink. So she's got to come up with a non-alcoholic beverage. What an arduous task for Megan. Megan got the bottle to her lips 24/7. I'm sure she was devastated when she found out they didn't drink. But Lord knows she slipped something in her own beverage. So they are vegan and they also don't drink alcohol. So she's, this is a whole new world for her, right? We're surprised to find it's a whole new world for her because I could have sworn she was vegan at some point. Megan's status as a vegan is very confusing to me. I'm going to be 100% with you. I could have sworn that I'd read that she was vegan. And yet, I can't see her ever referencing that was a kind of eating that she had practiced at any time. Back when she was an actress, I thought she was. There was such a push toward veganism, like in the early 2000s, and so many people trying to tell you that was... If you weren't eating as a vegan, you just weren't eating like you wanted health at all. Like, you were either going to die or you're going to be vegan, right? And so it's like those were your options. And so there's lots of celebrities who wanted to be skinny mini and were doing the whole vegan thing. And I thought for sure Megan was one of them. I feel like I could have read that 1,000 places, but she never makes any mention of it. It just seems strange that as a public figure who had often talked about diet and who I thought I remembered saying she was a vegan is now not saying anything. So I'm like, maybe she's either hoping we all forgot that she was vegan or she wasn't, and that's my mistake. But I do know she pitched a fit about the eggs and the wedding cake. Now, I've had other people in my comments say the only reason she really acted like she cared was because there were celebrities coming who she knew they were vegan, and she wanted to make sure that they weren't offended by anything she presented. But then she had the roast chicken. So what's that about? How are you going to have a roast chicken at your vegan wedding? I don't know. All right, so regardless, she makes no mention of having formerly been vegan on this episode, and she says she doesn't cook a lot of plant-based meals at home, and so she's excited to learn all about that. But in the meantime, she's going to fix these non-alcoholic beverages. So she begins by getting soda water and smashing up a bunch of berries and putting in lemon juice and putting in agave syrup and basil and flour ice cubes and all this. And per the usual, she's always putting in too much junk. She makes a big thing about, now we don't want it to feel like they're drinking a salad, as she stuffs more basil leaves into the glass, more flowers with rosemary, basil, flower petals. And I'm like, you don't want them to feel like they're drinking a salad. Is it the compost heap you want them to feel like they're drinking? I mean, that's how it always is with her. It's always the compost heap. She just throws a bunch of scraps together. And it's supposed to be like what? Some kind of edible modern art. I mean, I don't understand what she's going for here, but it's always too much. I feel like she needs to internalize, except with food, the famous quote from Coco Chanel when she said, the last thing you put on when you accessorize, you should go ahead and take off, because it was too much at that point. Take it off and leave it. And I feel like she would do well to insert that bit of fashion wisdom into her cooking. Leave off that last thing you want to put on. It's always too much. Okay, but she ends up making these drinks. They probably taste pretty good. Well, Roddy and Jay get there. Can I just make a side note to say, these are the most beautiful people I've ever seen. Her hair is unbelievable. Anyway, they do a lot of small talk. You always gotta have small talk with the guest. And Megan's like, it's good, right? You don't have to have alcohol. It's still delicious, which I think is weird. Like, I know that really the conversation is being had not because she would literally say that to her guest if they came over, but because it's the cooking show and they're trying to talk about, you can still make something that's really fun, delicious, and celebratory, even if it doesn't have to have alcohol in it. But I feel like there's other ways to talk about it without feeling like she's calling out her guests for their irregular preference, right? I don't find it irregular. I personally don't drink a lot of alcohol myself and would have probably preferred this beverage that she made. So I'm not trying to act like, oh gosh, this was so hard for her. I don't think it is. That's why I feel like it's rude. She wants to say to them, so are you enjoying your drink? I mean, it's, you can still make it good even if the people you're having over don't like alcohol. These are the people you're having over who don't like to have alcohol. Like, you're so awkward and weird. And Roddy, of course, is just lovely, divine. And she says that they have people over every Friday night for game night. So she's always trying to think, like, what's a fun drink that we can have where people don't feel like they're missing the alcohol because they don't serve it in their home. And so then that launches them into a conversation about how they have people over for game night, and sometimes as many as 40 people. And every week they send out an email, and it's got like 40 people on it, and sometimes it's 9 people who show up, and sometimes it's 40. And Megan's just flabbergasted. 40 people in your home. What? That's crazy. And you cook for all these people? And Roddy's like, yeah. Mm-hmm. He said that when she was growing up, they always had a full house. So for her, it feels so natural to host. But Megan really she just is sort of flabbergasted they would have these people over, and continues to be flabbergasted. And I feel like she does this, and she'll do this again later, where rather than ask meaningful questions, she stays on the part where she's shocked at how many people they have over, and she just, oh my gosh, 40? Wow, that's so many. Oh, you cook for all of them? Wow, this is insane. Oh, I could never. What? And it's all just a front because she's nothing else to say. Okay, so ask your guests some more things. It's not so hard. Substituting shock, amazement, awe, and befuddlement is not a substitute for conversation. You have to say something beyond your initial surprise. This is an Americanism. We do this a lot, where we act very dramatic about things because we don't have anything to say. And I say this as a person who's used this tactic of my own, to just... You want the other person to feel like you're impressed with what they did, but rather than verbalize that you're impressed, you just keep going, wow. Jamie Kern-Lim is a big one on this. And we need to do better. Verbalize why you think it's so amazing that they did this thing. It'll also get you saying more than just wow. All right? But Megan can't. She's not a creative person. She said as much herself in past episodes that she's not creative. When she was making aprons with the guy from Queer Eye, she said to him she's not a creative person. And I was like, finally, you're admitting it to yourself. Okay, now that we can quit gaslighting ourselves about that, why don't we admit this whole show is a sham? Anyway, continuing on. After they get done with their little small talk, it's time to go and do craft time, right? We go over to the craft barn, and she wants to make vegan soap. Okay. Here we are back in 1993 with the crafts. I started out complimenting the crafts because we had the marbling on those silk scarves, which I thought was fun, and we had bookbinding, which was also fun. But what are these crafts like painting aprons and making soap? Making soap with all the dried flowers in it, is that not 1993, 1994? What's next? Making pulp paper out of old egg crates? Pressing in our dried flowers onto our pulp paper. Now you got a stack of paper you'll never use, because how are you supposed to write over all that bumpy junk that you pressed into your paper? But anyway, all of these crafts I can see in my mind's eye. I can see in my mind's eye this craft book I used to have back when I was a kid. I can see all of the pictures. I can see the way everything was laid out. I can see how everything was completely overly ornate, with a burning candle in the background, the pulp paper set on a piece of yellowed lace. I mean, could you guys remember? It's just oh my gosh, I have such a visual in my mind about these kinds of crafts that used to be foisted on us in the 90s. But anyway, here she is making her soap. So as they're making it, they're talking about what essential oils they're going to put in. And Roddy says she wants to put in peppermint oil because she's going to use the soap in the morning, and the smell of peppermint is really invigorating. Jay says that he prefers eucalyptus and lavender, so he's going to put those two things in. Those are the scents he gravitates towards. What do you think Megan's going to put in hers? Well, Megan, of course, using this as a vital opportunity to talk about her imaginary children, says, okay, well, for me, because I know that I'm going to be using this with my family, my children, my mind immediately goes to, okay, toddlers, okay, bumps and bruises. What am I going to have to do for that? And Roddy says tea tree oil, and Megan's like, tea tree oil, but also arnica. Also that. Arnica? Isn't that the crap you told people to put into those bath salts and that woman burned her skin off? This is the deal with arnica, you guys. Arnica is used for healing bruises. That is a true fact, but it has to be blended in with the carrier oil because it's extremely caustic and it will burn the living daylights out of you. It is used to heal bruises, but it is not used by itself, and it has to be very diluted. And even then, you should make sure that you test it on your skin because some people find it very irritating. There's toxins in the plant that you get this oil from. So it's a toxic plant. You should be really careful with it. But under the right conditions, you can use it to treat bruises. So that is a true statement what she's saying, but There's so many other things that you could use, like tea tree oil is not going to hurt you. The arnica oil is a little bit dangerous. If you, like I said, if you put it with a carrier oil, it's probably fine. And she's making soap using the olive oil that she previously got in Ojai when she was with Jamie Kern Lima. So it'll probably be fine in this scenario to put the arnica in it. But it seems like one might want to have a little caveat. She wants to quickly act as though she has all this understanding about the essential oils, which, what a crock. But I feel like if you're going to say that you're going to use arnica, just make sure, it's well known to be a dangerous oil if you're not careful with it. So it just seems like you might just put that caveat in, like we're going to use it in the soap because we have the olive oil that we're mixing in, but you'd want to be really careful making sure you don't put this directly on the skin. No. They didn't even bother to do a voiceover about that, considering the big hubbub that happened in season 1 when she was putting dropper after dropper after dropper full of straight arnica oil into this bath salt mixture that she was making with no carrier oil. Anyway, I don't know anything about essential oils. I don't, but I do know that much. Her guest, Roddy, is somebody who has studied all kinds of herbal medicine, and that's kind of one of the things she does. So it seems like she might defer to Roddy, but this won't be the first time she talks over her guest and tries to act like she knows equally what her guest knows. We'll get to that when we're making the naan bread. All right. After they finish making their soap, they gotta let it sit. So now it's time to go and make the main meal. Roddy's here to cook, okay? And she's going to show you how you can make vegan food really delicious by using a lot of spices. And as she says, people think that having plant-based food is boring, but they think that because they're eating boring food. But the way to do it to where you feel full, satisfied, and very nourished is by using tons and tons of spices. And so she proceeds. And she says that they're going to make for dinner naan, and then they're going to have a sweet potato and green bean curry. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When she first said that they were going to have sweet potato and green bean curry, I was like, oh, gosh. That sounds like a disappointment on a plate. But then when she went on to make it, it looked delicious. I really wanted some of that. It's interesting because the one meal that I thought I wouldn't want to eat, by the end of it was like, I really want to make this. They cut up all the veggies to go into their vegetable curry. They set that aside. They get onto the naan bread because they're going to have to let that rise. And so they're mixing it. And she says they're going to put coconut yogurt in it because yogurt goes in naan bread. And that the flavors, which are sort of tangy and everything, go really well with the curry. Megan is blown away by the fact that there's yogurt in naan. I don't know. It's not that weird. There's so many different kinds of breads that use yogurt or sour cream or some kind of soured product in order to activate the yeast. But again, it's like, Megan, are you truly shocked, or does this come down to you just not knowing what else to say in the moment? Because she goes on and on about it. Really? Really? Yogurt? I had no idea. You just told me something I had no idea. No one has ever told me that yogurt is in naan. That is a really interesting thing. Wow. The things you learn. I'm like, yeah, the things you learn, Megan. I'm learning right now that you don't know anything about cooking, because this really shouldn't blow your mind to this extent. So I'm learning that you either have zero skills as a conversationalist, which I kind of already knew, or you don't know anything about the craft that you just decided to make a whole show about. At this point, as they're all huddled around the stove making what is a fairly simple dish. So it's one of those things where you just feel a little bit overwhelmed by how many people are in the kitchen and standing around the stove, because it's literally like, pour in the green beans, pour in the sweet potatoes, let's pour in that chopped cauliflower. It's like they're pouring on all this stuff, and it's all 3 adults standing around the stove, and it would have just been, it's an unnecessary amount of people for such a simple recipe where everything's just being poured into a pot and cooking down. But as they're doing this, Jay says, and I want to like Jay so much because he is a really easy person to be around, but when he said this, I was like, Jay, you just got under my skin. He says, I love how everything we've done today is so analog. So analog, Jay? Really? Is that the term you decided to use? I love how everything is so analog. You know, like an analog clock versus a digital clock. Like, do you mean like old-fashioned? Like, what are you even saying right now? I like how everything we've done today is so analog. And then Megan, seeing that this is, oh good, a meaningful moment with Meg, she decides to capitalize on this. Oh good, this is exactly what she wanted, because the whole theme today is supposed to be connecting to the craftsmanship behind the food, the gratefulness, the thankfulness, the presence, and the joy. So she's like, yes, it's a completely tactile experience. It reconnects you. We are being reconnected in this tactile experience. And then he says, it's just amazing using all your senses. Like when we were making the soap earlier, every sense of ours today has been used. And they have this little, going back and forth, trying to create a meaningful moment. I think the thing to me is, it is true. Like what they're saying, it's not that there is zero truth to what they're saying. It's just such a fundamental truth that it bothers me. Because I feel like we've got to get beyond these fundamentals so we can have deeper conversations. If we're over here being shot into realms of ecstasy because you got to touch a piece of bread dough, because you are making some soap and it smelled good, I don't know how to bring you to deeper depths of knowledge and understanding if that for you is enough. Yes, let's be grateful for all the things, even the small things. But to continue to try to make these profound moments in your show based off of so little, it bothers me because I think there are big things you could talk about. Look, either make the show just a fun show or try to make it really deep. But don't try to do this little thing where it's fun, but then also we're getting these little moments of meaning, because you can't pull it off. It just comes off as hokey pokey, phony baloney. I don't want any of it. All right. Well, after they get done having meaningful moments with Meg, they have to turn their attention to the naan bread, right? So they've been standing over the stove. Everybody has got their hands in the pot. This is literally too many cooks in the kitchen scenario. But they get that going, and then they've got to get the bread dough. It's risen. It's time to roll it out. Once again, the high point of drama is the rolling pins. I can't believe we're having episode 2 of rolling pin drama. The fact that it was a scenario in several episodes back, or whatever it was, too much. But now we're doing it again? All right, well, Roddy, has brought 2 rolling pins from home that she uses when she rolls out the naan bread. They're very interesting. I've never seen any rolling pin this thin. Like, a lot of us are familiar with, like, the pastry rolling pin, but even that is, like, huge to Roddy. She's like, I didn't think I could use those Western rolling pins, so I brought my own. Anyway, she's rolling the naan bread. Jay's struggling. He doesn't help much in the kitchen, so all of this is blowing his mind, and he feels inadequate, and they've sort of laughed at his expense all along throughout, and I'm like, well, the guy's trying anyway. He cannot with the naan. It keeps sticking to his rolling pin. He's having all kinds of struggles. But anyway, they finish that. They're going to get ready to cook it on like a tortilla. They start it in the pan, and then they end up cooking it on the open flame. But anyway, Megan, who continually wants to interject, she keeps being like, and now we're going to do this, and now we're going to do that. And I'm like, why don't we let Roddy tell us? Because she's the one who knows. But they're going to cook the naan bread, and Megan's like, now, this process is very typical of, like, if you're going to cook a tortilla. Roddy's like, yes. So they put the bread into the hot pan, and Megan says, now, let's look and see these bubbles that are coming alongside. Now, that's a good sign when we're beginning to see the bubbles along the edges. Like, why don't you step back for a minute, okay? You didn't even know there was yogurt in this bread. So stop telling me what I ought to be looking for when I'm watching the bread cooking. Roddy can tell me. It just is annoying to me. Now, you see those bubbles along the edge. That's a good sign. That means we're coming around. We're about to get ready to flip it. Well, first of all, that's just intuitive, obviously. But also, let Roddy say it. Back up. Jay is talking about how he hopes they can redeem his crumpled piece of naan when they put it in the pan. And then Megan has to step in and be like, Jay, your whole podcast is all about not shaming yourself. And I feel like that's all you've done today. And Jay's like, yeah, I know, but sometimes it's fun. And, Megan and Roddy have a little moment where they tell Jay, this is just a moment for learning. It's a moment for being present. And I'm like, this is a moment where I kill myself. Anyway, they finish the food. It's a delicious smorgasbord of delectable flavors. It's hot. Megan's wiping her nose after the first bite, but they're all enjoying it. It looks so good. So good. And then after they eat and after all the crew, hedges in, because Brooklyn/Michael/director hadn't gotten his bit yet, and Megan wasn't paying enough attention to him. So he hedges in and gets himself a little Something. We haven't seen too much of him, except for occasionally Megan will call him in, like when she made Rosewater a couple episodes again. She had to spritz his face, and then, of course, she had to do everybody else's. But it was really between her and Brooklyn/Michael/director. So, I mean, everybody else could get a little bit of a spritz if they wanted to, but really it was a moment between the two of them. Anyway, everyone tastes the food, and everyone's just like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing I've ever had in my whole life. And then they gotta go and try the soaps, because the soaps are ready. They gotta go cut the soap. They go and cut the soap. Everyone's complimenting each other. Oh my gosh, yours is so good. Oh my gosh, I didn't put enough oil in mine. Oh my gosh, yes, you did. Okay. This is what I'm saying to you. The silliness, the childishness, the necessity for compliments, always, continually. What I thought was interesting is Megan didn't bother to make them any kind of present. She's given everybody else something. Why did she not give them something? Oh, well, that's not true. She is going to gift them a bottle of olive oil that she got from the olive oil place. But she didn't make them anything, like she usually makes something for everybody else. So we didn't get that moment where she receives her compliments. That's probably why she had to talk down about how her soap turned out, so that they would all turn around and be like, that's not true at all. Yours is so good. Yours might be the best one. Then they are all going to go inside and have dessert, okay? Well, I got to cut away to Megan making some vegan coconut macaroons, right? And she's excited to tell you that, usually it asks for egg whites, but since it's vegan, they're going to use the juice out of a can of chickpeas. She wants you to know that mixologists will sometimes use chickpea liquid because it froths. It's not going to turn into peaks or anything, but you get some froth. I don't really know how you can substitute that. It froths, but what's it going to do when I cook it? You know what I mean? I'm not saying they didn't turn out. Everyone says at the end when they all eat this, the texture of this is amazing. So I'm guessing it worked out. But I know that visually it could be a dupe, but can it be a literal dupe? I don't know, whatever. They did it. So she's over there whisking her chickpea liquid, and she's pouring the coconuts, and then she's pouring the coconut milk in, and it's just a bunch of pouring into a bowl and mixing. It is the easiest thing you've ever seen in your whole life. And that's what she wants you to know. She says to you, everything is easier than it seems. Another little moment with Meg. Another little time for you to know that it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be so easy. She had another meaningful moment earlier when they're eating that naan bread, This is just so incredible. It's just so incredible how there's so much craftsmanship behind every bite of bread. Everything is just so deep and full of meaning, but also easier than it seems, So we're trying to get two messages at once. There's depth, easy. And I think that's what she's trying to make her show. Deep yet easy at the same time. And that's the problem. She's trying to straddle two lines too much. Anyway, after she gets done mixing up all her ingredients for the macaroons, she's got to use a little scoop, and she's going to scoop them onto a tray lined with parchment paper. And Brooklyn/Michael/director, because he hasn't gotten enough attention lately, chimes in with, that is so satisfying to watch you do that. And she giggles to herself. Little meditative moments. Brooklyn, what is your life lacking? It's this moment where she's just using a scoop to scoop some dough. It's like so illuminating to you, so satisfying to you that you've got to interrupt filming to mention it. Was their conversation so lacking? Did he feel that there was so little dynamic happening on screen that he felt that he had to interject at that time? I don't even know why they added that in. They could have just had her scooping. We didn't need to hear from Michael/Brooklyn. We really didn't. I don't know why they edited that in. All the times when he's interjecting are moments when they could have edited out and, I don't know, like played music while we watched her do whatever it is that she's doing. We could have filled it in instead of making this awkward, like this hollow voice off to the side speaking to her. That is just not an editing choice I would have made. It's not like I know what I'm doing, but that's just what I wouldn't have done it. I think it's so distracting. Anyway, after they get done making the macaroons, and they come out of the oven, it's time to drizzle them with chocolate, right? And one of them, she dunks some of them, and then the other one she drizzles, and she's like, that's better. I like this better. It's more ladylike. And I've noticed she uses that word a lot, ladylike. And I think it's part of her lore about herself, this mythology that she has tried to create about herself as being this super ladylike person. You know, whenever she talks about Archie, she always talks about teaching manners because manners makes the man. And, you know, she always has all of these little things that she likes to talk about, like she's so dainty and ladylike. And yet, out of one side of her mouth, it's, this is more ladylike. Manners makes the man. I just like to be mindful and be very careful about the way I do things so I don't offend anybody. But then at the other side of her mouth, she's telling us tales about having a shirt that said, talk nerdy to me. And I don't think a lady would wear a shirt like that. Anyway, after we get done with her macaroon making, it's time to cut back to her and her guests. And, you know, we have some chai tea making. It looks delicious. And they make the chai tea and they talk about that. And then they, you know, have the macaroons, and everyone's got to compliment Megan on the texture of her macaroons. Even though when they all take one off the plate, I don't know if they're just trying to break it slowly so it doesn't like create crumbs. I don't know. It looks like the hardest cookie ever. Interesting, because just as you're thinking the texture must be absolute garbage, everyone's like, the texture's amazing. So I'm like, are we lying, or was the visual just a little off? Because her struggle to break that cookie made me feel like the texture was not amazing. I don't know. Maybe the chickpea liquid did its thing after all. And that's pretty much where it ends. They all talk to Megan about this was the greatest day of all time. They've just made so many good memories. They hug each other, and then she sends them off into the dead of night with their jug of olive oil and a couple of macaroons for the kids. So that's that. That was the end of that episode. I feel like Megan tries so hard to mirror her guests, and whatever it is they're doing, she tries to do likewise. And I feel like we saw all of that once more with this episode. All this business, trying to be Jay, and trying to... I mean, I don't feel like I conveyed enough to you how many times throughout this episode she would stop to have a meaningful moment. And they would always start playing music when she would start having her meaningful moment, which made it even more hokey and just pathetic. Meaningful moments with Meg, with the hokey music behind it, while she tries to convey that it's so good that we're present during this amazing process of making food and considering all the people involved with it, all the farmers behind the flour and the hands now that have rolled it, and the moments, the tactile analog moments of flipping it over the flames. It was so nauseating. I'm not a person that's acquainted with the idea of being grateful. Like, please, by all means. The thing is, to me, randomly throwing out thanks is meaningless. Who am I saying thank you to? Oh, the universe. No, you're not. You know what I find really interesting? How much people want to be grateful, but I don't find being grateful to nothing out, like some vague vibe out there I'm being thankful to. Like, how is that fulfilling to anybody? We have an innate need, a desire within us to be grateful, to be thankful, because there is someone to be thankful to. Our Creator, the God who has placed his loving hand on us, who gives us the breath of life. That's who you want to be thankful to. But this just sort of like, yes, I want to be thankful. That's like in our DNA, our blood and bones cry out to say thanks. Because it's almost hard to enjoy something without saying thank you. You know when I really saw this? Sorry, this is a complete side point. You can click off of this. You don't have to listen to the side point, but I think this is so interesting. There's a show called Alone. And on this reality show, they leave a whole bunch of people out in the woods by themselves, completely alone. They have 10 items of survival. And throughout the seasons, there have been various challenges. You know, you got to stay out for 100 days or whatever. And in this one season that I had watched, you had to stay out for 100 days, and the person who could make it to 100 days would win $1 million. What I found was so interesting throughout this whole thing is that they are out there literally living off the land, trying to survive by themselves. And anytime they were able to catch food and kill food, they always said thank you. But they didn't always know who to say thank you to. Often it was thank you to the animal for giving its life, just like a general thank you, thank you, thank you. They could not enjoy the food unless they had said thank you. Their souls cried out to give thanks. But the problem is I don't want to say thank you to the dead animal because he's dead. He can't even receive my thanks. Yet I'm still compelled to say thank you. Well, people want to say thank you to God, but the thing is that if you don't recognize that there is a God, then you've got no one to say thank you to. So this whole episode is annoying to me because we're speaking in vaguely spiritual terms. But what good is that to me if I'm just throwing out these generalizations with no purpose, point, or meaning to it? You know, and that's why I think Megan is so shallow, because she wants to tap into this great river of strength, which is true spirituality. But she's too much of a coward to do it with any meaning. And that's why episodes like this fall so flat, because it's so shallow and unintentional. If I'm not saying thank you to a specific being, that being God, I'm just wasting the breath out of my mouth. And that's why these episodes are just so lame. Because there's no meat to it. But she wants you to feel like she offered you something. She didn't. She offered you scented air and told you to consume it and be fed. Sorry, it's not working for me. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Megan. Of course, like I've said many, many times, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're doing Megan. Fridays, Friday News Roundup, but mark your calendars for September 15th. I get a lot of comments on my videos, just people generally being annoyed it's not a book reading. And so for those people who are just consistently upset, mark your calendars for the 15th. We're going to be doing Entitled about Prince Andrew. Like I've said many times, I've read ahead. It's great. So I'm excited to bring that to you. The author of that book, Andrew Baloney, is one of my absolute favorites. He's great. We've read 2 of his books on this channel. He never disappoints. He's fabulous. Just adore him. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.